Hello and welcome to this final first look exploring session looking at Bussy D'Ambois, or Bussy D'Ambois, or whatever you want to go for, by George Chapman. We keep veering around pronunciation names because we don't know how French we're supposed to be. So it's confusing, and I'm sure a deeper dive into the scansion will give us more clues, but we haven't done that, so you're getting what you're getting. Act 4 Scene 2 is where we're going from today as we complete the progress of the play. This is using the largely expansive B text, and I will occasionally indicate where sort of additions live to the text, depending on your point of view as to how texts evolve. And we're going to see how it all goes and find out whether Bussy's going to do what Monsieur wants or not. Let us see. So reading today, Friar and Murderers, that's not a spoiler, is...
Hello, I'm Lynn. I am coming to you from the northwestern United States.
Reading Bussy today is...
Sarah Blake in Germany.
Reading Cartophylax and Montsurry is...
Oh, Brian Myers from Oregon.
Reading Guise today is...
Alίκη Chapple from Athens in Lancashire.
Reading the Monsieur today is...
Hi, I want to be king.
Don't we all? Reading... Is the king... Is the king down today? Have I missed the king? Anyway. Reading Perrault, Pages and Epilogue is...
Helen, already confused in Suffolk.
And reading Tamyra, let's call the whole thing off, is...
Helen Good, currently in London.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions and possibly another part as well. We shall see as we go on. So, right, without further ado, we're going to dive into Act 4, Scene 2. Enter D'Ambois and Friar.
I am suspicious, my most honoured father, by some of Monsieur's cunning passages, that his still raging and contentious nostrils to scent the haunts of mischief have so used the vicious virtue of his busy sense that he trails hotly of him and will rouse him, driving him all enraged and foaming on us. And therefore have entreated your deep skill in the command of good aerial spirits to assume these magic rites and call up one, to know if any have revealed unto him anything touching my dear love and me.
Good son, you have amazed me, but to make the least doubt of it, it concerns so nearly the faith and reverence of my name and order. Yet I will justify upon my soul all I have done. If any spirit in the earth or air can give you the resolve, do not despair.
Music, and Tamyra enters with Perrault, her maid, bearing a letter.
Away, deliver it.
Exit Perrault.
Oh, may my lines, filled with the poison of a woman's hate, when he shall open them, shrink up his cursed eyes with tortuous darkness, such as stands in hell, struck full of inward horrors, never lighted, with which are all things to be feared, affrighted.
How is it with my honoured mistress?
O servant, help and save me from the gripes of shame and infamy. Our love is known. Your Monsieur hath a paper where is writ some secret tokens that decipher it.
What cold, dull, northern brain! What fool but he dost take into his Epimethean breast a box of such plagues as the danger yields incurred in this discovery? He had better ventured his breast in the consuming reach of the hot surfeits cast out of the clouds, or stood the bullets that, to wreck the sky, the Cyclops ram in Jove's artillery.
We soon will take the darkness from his face that did the deed of darkness. We will know what now the Monsieur and your husband do, what is contained within the secret paper offered by Monsieur, and your love's events. To which ends, honored daughter, at your motion, I have put these exercising rites Put on these exercising rites, and by my power of learned holiness, vouchsafed me from above, I will command our resolution of a raised spirit.
Father, raise him in some beauteous form, that with least terror I may brook his sight.
Stand sure together, then, whate'er you see, and stir not, as ye tender all our lives.
And he puts on his presumably magical robes.
Occidentalium legi on spiritualium imperator. Magnus ille Behemoth, veni, comitatus cum Azeroth loco tenente invicto, autorite per stigis inscrutablia, arcana per ipsos irremediables tenebrarum dite profundissima per labentia sidera, per ipsos motus orarum futivos ecatesque altum silentum appare informe spirit tali lucente splendida et amabili.
And thunder. Behemoth ascends with Cartophylax and other spirits. What would the holy friar?
I would see what now the Monsieur and Montsurry do, and see the secret paper that the Monsieur offered to Count Montsurry, longing much to know on what events the secret loves of these two honored persons shall arrive.
Why callest thou me to this accursed light, to these light purposes? I am emperor of that inscrutable darkness, where are hid all deepest truths and secrets never seen, all which I know, and command legions of knowing spirits that can do more than these. Any of this, my God, that circle me in these blue flames, and out of whose dim fumes vast murmurs used to break, and from their sounds articulate voices, can do 10 parts more than open such slight truths as you require.
From the last night's black depth I called up one of the inferior ablest ministers, and he could not resolve me. Send one, then, of thine own command to fetch the paper that Monsieur hath to show Count Montsurry.
I will. Cartophylax, thou that properly hast in thy power all papers so inscribed, glide through all bars to it, and fetch that paper.
I will.
And a torch removes exit Cartophylax.
Till he returns, great Prince of Darkness, tell me if Monsieur and Count Montsurry are yet encountered.
Both them and the Guise are now together.
Show us all their persons, and represent the place with all their actions.
The spirit will straight return, and then I'll show thee. See, he is come. Why brought'st thou not the paper?
He hath prevented me, and got a spirit raised by another, great in our command, to take the guard of it before I came.
Oh, this is your slackness, not to invoke our powers when first your acts set forth to their effects. Yet shall you see it and themselves. Behold! They come here, and the Earl now holds the paper. Enter Monsieur Guise Montsurry, magically with paper.
May we not hear them?
No, be still and see.
I will go fetch the paper.
Do not stir. There's too much distance and too many locks twixt you and them. How near soe'er they seem, for any man to interrupt their secrets.
O honoured spirit, fly into the fancy of my offended lord, and do not let him believe what there the wicked man hath written.
Persuasion hath already entered him beyond reflection. Peace till their departure.
There is a glass of ink where you may see how to make ready black-faced tragedy. You now discern, I hope, through all her paintings, her gasping wrinkles and famed sepulchres.
Think you he feigns, my lord? What hold you now? Do we malign your wife, or honour you?
What, stricken dumb? Nay, fie, lord, be not daunted. Your case is common, were it ne'er so rare, bear it as rarely. Out aloft for manly, a worthy man should imitate the weather that sings in tempests, and being clear is silent.
Go home, my lord, and force your wife to write such loving lines to D'Ambois as she used when she desired his presence.
Do, my lord, and make her name her concealed messenger, that close and most inerrable pander, that passeth all our studies to esquire, by whom convey the letter to her love, and you shall be sure to have him come within the thirsty reach of your revenge, before which lodge an ambush in her chamber behind the arras of your stoutest men, all close and soundly armed, and let them share a spirit amongst them that would serve 1,000.
Enter Perrault with a letter.
Yet stay a little. She sends for you.
Poor loving lady, she'll make all good yet. Think you not so, my lord?
Montsurry stabs Perrault and exit.
Alas, poor soul!
This was cruelly done, in faith.
Well, it's nobly done, and I forgive his lordship from my soul.
Then much good do it thee, Perrault. Has the letter?
I hope rather to be a bitter volume of worthy curses for your perjury.
To you, my lord?
To me? How out upon her.
Let me see, my lord.
You shall presently. How fares my Perrault?
Enter servant.
Who's there? Take in this maid. She's called a clap, and fetch my surgeon to her. Come, my lord, we'll now peruse our letter.
Exeunt. Monsieur Guise lead her out.
Furies rise out of the black lines and torment his soul.
She so says, exiting.
Hath my lord slain my woman?
No, she lives. Friar?
We lost Lynn.
Oh, have we lost Lynn? Oh, so we have. Someone read the friar's line.
What shall become of us?
All I can say, being called thus late, is brief and darkly this. If D'Ambois' mistress die not, her white hand in her forced blood he shall remain untouched. So, father, shall yourself, but by yourself, to make this augury plainer, when the voice of D'Ambois shall invoke me, I will rise, shining in greater light, and show him all that will betide ye all. Meantime be wise, and curb his valour with your policies. And descends with his devil, someone who is not Helen or Sarah, read the one line of the friar.
He will be sure.
Will he appear to me when I invoke him?
Oh, he will be sure.
It must be shortly then, for his dark words have tied my thoughts on knots till he dissolve and free them.
In meantime, dear servant, till your powerful voice revoke him, be sure to use the policy he advised, lest fury in your too quick knowledge taken of our abuse and your defence of me accuse me more than any enemy. And father, you must on my lord impose your holiest charges and the church's power to temper his hot spirit and disperse the cruelty and the blood I know his hand will shower upon our heads, if you put not your finger to the storm and hold it up, as my dear servant here must do with Monsieur.
I'll soothe his plots and strow my hate with smiles, till all at once the close minds of my heart rise at full date and rush into his blood. I'll bind his arm in silk and rub his flesh to make the veins swell, that his soul may gush into some kennel where it longs to lie, and policy shall be flanked with policy. Yet shall the feeling centre where we meet groan with the weight of my approaching feet. I'll make the inspired thresholds of his court sweat with the weather of my horrid steps before I enter. Yet will I appear like calm security before a ruin. A politician must, like lightning, melt the very marrow and not taint the skin. His ways must not be seen. The superficies of the green centre must not taste his feet when hell is ploughed up with his wounding tracts and all his harvest reaped by hellish facts.
And they exit, and that's the end of the act. So, okay, who here was expecting demons? Who here apart from people who've read ahead what part they were playing later in the week and noticed Behemoth, etc. Anyone expecting that? Helen, are you declaring an interest or you just have a comment?
No, given that it's October when this is being recorded, and knowing your proclivity for doing spooky material in October,
there was a wafer thin connection to Halloween I was putting in this week, and this is it. Congratulations, you've had the spooky bit. I am starting to run out of genuinely witch demonic plays, so I'm this one, which is somewhere. There's a lot of interesting stuff in here that I really like. I love the I just love Behemoth turns up and just goes, why are you calling 999 when you could be calling NHS Direct on a lower service number? Go to your GP. You do not need to be calling this. This is well below my pay grade. What are you doing? And say, well, I tried that earlier and it didn't work. And it's like, God, amateurs. So there was something really funny about that I really liked.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we have a saying we haven't seen since Friar Bacon, which is the, I think since Friar Bacon, anyone remember another instance of the magical viewing something happening in another scene action, which is really, really nice. Anyone see Perrault getting stabbed? Anyone expect that? That's quite a surprise, isn't it? It really comes out of nowhere. You could sort of understand why it might be something he does, but it's not signposted, is it? It really isn't. Sarah?
No, I don't understand why he does it. I mean, you're not supposed to shoot the messenger, let alone stab her. I mean,
we always shoot the messenger in early modern plays.
Well, yeah, but it's like the thing that I thought about it, because you know what I'm like with my psychology, it's like, oh, okay. Montsurry, because he was quite sort of, he started off in this play being quite even-tempered, and then he got, very confused about, oh, is my wife sleeping with someone else? And then he started to get a bit cross about it because, oh, this might be true. But like, he's really taken a turn. And for him to go from that to kind of, oh, you've delivered a message from my wife who's sleeping with someone else. Dab. I really did not see that coming at all from him. And also, let me just get this out as well, and then people can tell me what I've got wrong here. There's that side has summoned demons too. So either Montsurry or the Monseigneur or the Monsieur, one or the other, is summoning spirits as well.
This is Catholicism, people. This is what it, let me bracket that. Early modern conceptions of those terrible people over the sea.
Okay.
It's a sort of, I think it's an expansion pack on that, but it really is. I was surprised that they had got defensive spells in place. That came out of the blue. I was utterly completely not phased by the Friar conjuring demons, but that the other side of doing it as well was a genuinely interesting thing. Anyway, I'll go to Brian, then Lynn, then Alίκη, then Alan.
I was just going to recall, because you can't not at this point, towards the end of yesterday's reading, Monsieur, describing Bussy, says, I fear him strangely. His advanced valor is like a spirit raised without a circle, endangering him that ignorantly raised him. So we had an image of these invocations and of the danger of an unprotected spirit, and it was about Bussy, before we found out they all actually do these things. Just had to draw attention to that line. Done.
No,
Thank you.
it's an excellent call.
Awesome.
Lynn.
Yeah, so my take on the murder of the waiting gentlewoman, this is just sort of a guess, is that it's kind of structural. The killing is about to start, so we begin the bloodbath with a relatively minor character. That's sort of a signal to the audience that it's about to go down. So
Alίκη.
that's why.
And then Alan, then Helen.
I think it's because he asked her yesterday if his wife was cheating, and she said, "Oh no, sir, your wife is faithful as the day is long. She loves you so much, I promise."
Yeah, and comes in, here's a letter. It's like, yeah, bumf. Alan, then Helen, then Eric.
Yeah, I think we've got the standard issue, posh boy. Oh, we've got a corruptible servant in. And she knows a bit too much now. Fine. Waste disposal.
Yeah, it is. It's we traditionally kill murderers off, and traditionally we do not trust people who betray on your behalf. We don't usually have that distrust leading to automatic death without a line of dialogue going on. I mean, it's literally, she comes in, and I don't even think it's like Montsurry is handed the letter. I don't think he has the letter. It's not like he's read about his wife's affair and in a rage does the stabbing. He just gets the implication, but because the letter is there. Because I think it's the Guise and Monsieur are doing that, and Montsurry just goes. Helen, then Eric, then Brian.
Yes, there's a prophecy in the middle of this that nobody takes any notice of at all. And it's taken me some time because it's in a double negative. If D'Ambois' mistress dye not her white hand in her forced blood, he shall remain untouched. And I think, I mean, if you take out the negatives, is if she does dye her hand in her forced blood, if she does, he shall be touched.
Bad things will happen. Yeah.
Bad things will happen. But nobody takes a blind bit of notice of it. Presumably they're just confused by the double negative and put it on one side for future confidence.
Yeah, it's interesting because there is a different line reading in the other version of the text. If D'Ambois' mistress stain not her white hand with his forced blood, he shall remain untouched. So that's slightly different.
Totally different.
Yeah. So I'm curious about what's going on there. Anyway, Eric, then Brian.
I had a few points to make. Just like, okay, I love Behemoth coming in and doing the whole thing of like, do you know who I am? I've got better things to do. Come on, chop. And then like, click your hands and do stuff. Then Monsieur actually says, force your wife to tell us who the messenger is, and so you shall be sure to have him come within the thirsty reach of your revenge. I'm guessing that refers to D'Ambois or D'Ambois, like the him, as opposed to, unless it's the messenger, in which case that's what Montsurry assumes and tries to kill Perra, which is possible. Also,
Brian...
I like Behemoth going, all I can say, being called thus late, is brief and darkly this, right before the prophecy that Helen mentioned. It just sounds like, well, it's the end of it's a late shift. Come on. Obviously, that's not what he meant. But...
I didn't have time to do a complete draft because it's the end of a working day, and I've got tickets for the opera. So Brian, then Sarah.
I was just going to point out one more little fact to keep in mind in imagining what the stabbing of Perrault would look like on stage. Montsurry is on stage through the whole thing, listening to Guise and Monsieur explain to him what his wife has done. And he says nothing. And they go back and forth, accusing him and explaining to him and saying, "Why do you receive this? What do you think now?" And we can't see it in the lines, but he's reacting or failing to react, and that's dramatic in itself. And so he says nothing and does nothing until he stabs Perrault. So there's some buildup in him leading to that.
Sarah.
Yeah, I just wanted to come back to Helen's prophecy, because I interpreted it to mean that as long as Tamyra doesn't die, i.e., as long as her hand isn't stained, isn't dyed by her own forced blood, if someone's forced her blood from her and she's dying, he won't die. So basically, as long as she doesn't die, he won't die. That was how I interpreted it. Which I'm assuming, Bussy's going to do everything he can to make sure that Montsurry doesn't murder his wife. But then, so the version that could you just read out your version again? Because that just implies the opposite.
If D'Ambois' mistress stain not her white hand with his forced blood, he shall remain untouched. So it's, in that version, if he doesn't kill her.
No,
it's his forced blood.
If
so
he kills him, he can die.
Yes,
Nobody
exactly.
can kill him.
Nobody will.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering now, because depending on which version of the prophecy it is, he's either got a massive motive to keep her alive or a massive motive to kill her. So, that's going to make a massive difference to the text. I'm curious as to which it's going to be.
Okay, well, any other thoughts? Just to wrap up, just the shape of this as well, because this is the end of Act 4. We started Act 4 last time, and Act 4, we had Henry and Bussy doing big just bros in really obnoxious ways. We had this sort of setup of going on with Tamyra and the letter, which then goes straight into this. So it's the flow of action is interesting here. This act is sort of all about the letter and the uncovering of the affair. That seems to be what this unit of action is doing here. And that's not inherently a terrible place to open our second half with, as it were. Plus, there's conjuring. If you got bored, there's some fire and brimstone. That's always good to wake everybody up. Hope everybody's alert. That's the nature of friars, conjuring demons. That's what they do in their spare time. Says English popular culture of the early 17th century. Okay, let's go into Act 5. Excitement. Montsurry, bear, unbrace.
That means without a hat.
I know. I was leaning.
Fucking.
Yeah. It's
Sorry.
all right. I haven't finished the stage direction yet. Sorry, I'm just turning some pages so that I can get there again. So enter Montsurry, bare, unbraced. I mean, whew, how immodest. Pulling Tamyra in by the hair. So lots of demonstration of hair in this, depending on how much hair Montsurry has. There is also the Friar, one bearing a light, a standish and paper which sets a table.
Oh, help me, father.
Imperious Earl, forbear, take violent hand from her, or by mine order the king shall force thee.
Is not violent. Come you not willingly?
Yeah, yes, good my lord.
My lord, remember that your soul must seek her peace as well as your revengeful blood. You ever to this hour have proved yourself a noble, zealous, and obedient son to our holy mother. Be not an apostate. Your wife's offense serves not, were it worse than you can imagine, without greater proofs to sever your eternal bonds and hearts, much less to touch her with a bloody hand, to expiate any frailty in your wife with churlish strokes or beastly odds of strength. The stony birth of clouds will touch no laurel nor any sleeper. Your wife is your laurel, and the sweetest sleeper. Do not touch her then. Be not more rude than the wild seed of vapor to her that is more gentle than the rude, in whom kind nature suffered one offense, but to set off her other excellence.
Good father, leave us. Interrupt no more the course I must run for mine honor's sake. Rely on my love to her, which her fault cannot extinguish. Will she but disclose who was the secret minister of her love, and through what maze he served, we are friends.
It is a damned work to pursue those secrets that would ope more sin and prove springs of slaughter, nor is it a path for Christian feet to tread, but out of all way to the health of souls, a sin impossible to be forgiven, which he that dares commit.
Good father, cease your terrors. Tempt not a man distracted. I am apt to outrages that I shall ever rue. I will not pass the verge that bounds a Christian, nor break the limits of a man nor husband.
Then heaven inspire you both with thoughts and deeds worthy of his high respect, and your own souls.
Father!
I warrant thee, my dearest daughter, he will not touch thee. Think'st thou him a pagan? His honor and his soul lies for thy safety.
Exit Friar.
Who shall remove the mountain from my breast, stand in the opening furnace of my thoughts, and set fit outcries for a soul in hell?
Montsurry turns a key.
For now it nothing fits my woes to speak but thunder, or to take into my throat the trump of heaven, with whose determinate blasts the winds shall burst and the devouring seas be drunk up in his sounds, that my hot woes, vented enough, I might convert to vapor, ascending from my infamy unseen, short in the world, preventing the last breath that kills the living and regenerates death.
My lord, my fault, as you may censure it with too strong arguments, is past your pardon. But how the circumstances may excuse me, heaven knows, and your more temperate mind hereafter may let my penitent miseries make you know.
Hereafter, 'tis a supposed infinite that from this point will rise eternally. Fame grows in going, in the scapes of virtue, excuses damn her. They be fires in cities enraged with those winds that less lights extinguish. Come, siren, sing, and dash against my rocks thy ruffian galley rigged with quench for lust. Sing and put all the nets into thy voice, with which thou drewest into thy strumpet's lap the spawn of Venus, and in which ye danced, that in thy lap's steed I may dig his tomb, and quit his manhood with a woman's slight, who never is deceived in her deceit. Sing, that is, right, and then take from mine eyes the mists that hide the most inscrutable pander that ever lapped up an adulterous vomit, that I may see the devil and survive to be a devil, and then learn to wive, that I may hang him, and then cut him down, and then cut him up, and with my soul's beams search the cranks and caverns of his brain, and study the errant wilderness of a woman's face where men cannot get out, for all the comets that have been lighted at it. Though they know that adders lie a sunning in their smiles, that basilisks drink their poison from their eyes, and no way there to coast out to their hearts, yet still they wander there, and are not stayed till they be fettered, nor secure before all cares devour them, nor in human consort till they embrace within their wives' two breasts all Pelion and Kithaeron with their beasts. Why write you not?
Oh, my good lord, forbear. in wreck of great faults to engender greater, and make my love's corruption generate murder.
It follows needfully as child and parent. The chain shot of thy lust is yet aloft, and it must murder. 'Tis thine own dear twin. No man can add a height to a woman's sin. Vice never doth her just hate so provoke, as when she rageth under virtue's cloak. Right, for it must be, by this ruthless steel, by this impartial torture, and the death thy tyrannies have invented in my entrails, to quicken life in dying, and hold up the spirits in fainting, teaching to preserve torments in ashes that will ever last. Speak, will you right?
Sweet Lord, enjoin my sin some other penance than what makes it worse. Hide in some gloomy dungeon my loathed face, and let condemned murderers let me down, stopping their noses my abhorred food. Hang me in chains, and let me eat these arms that have offended. Bind me face to some dead woman taken from the cart of execution, till death and time in grains of dust dissolve me. I'll endure, or any torture that your wrath's invention can fright all pity from the world withal. But to betray a friend with show of friendship, that is too common for the rare revenge your rage effecteth. Here then are my breasts, last night your pillows. Here my wretched arms, as late the wished confines of your life. Now break them as you please, and all the bounds of manhood, noblesse, and religion.
Where all these have been broken, they are kept in doing their justice there with any show of the like cruel cruelty. Thine arms have lost their privilege in lust, and in their torture, thus they must pay it.
And he stabs her.
Oh, Lord!
Till thou writest, I'll write in wounds my wrongs fit characters, thy right of sufferance. Write!
Oh, kill me, dear husband, be not crueler than death. You have beheld some Gorgon. Feel how you are turned to stone. With my heart blood dissolve yourself again. Or if you will, grow into the image of all tyranny.
As thou art of adultery, I will ever prove thee my parallel, being most a monster. Thus I express thee yet.
Stabs her again.
And yet I live.
Aye, for the monstrous idol is not done yet. This tool hath wrought enough. Now torture use.
Enter servants.
This other engine on the habituate powers of her thrice damned and whorish fortitude. Use the most madding pains in her that ever thy venoms soaked through, making most of death, that she may weigh her wrongs with them, and then stand vengeance on thy steepest rock, a victor.
Oh, who is turned into my lord and husband? Husband? My lord! None but my lord and husband. Heaven, I ask thee remission of my sins, not of my pains. Husband! Oh! Help me! Husband!
Friar ascends with sword drawn.
What rape of honor and religion! Oh, wrack of nature!
Friar falls and dies.
Oh, man. Oh, my father. Father, look up. Oh, let me down, my lord, and I will write.
Author of prodigies, what new flame breaks out of the firmament that turns up counsels never known before? Now is it true earth moves and heaven stands still. Even heaven itself must see and suffer ill. The too huge bias of the world hath swayed her back part upwards, and with that she braves this hemisphere that long her mouth hath mocked. The gravity of her religious face, now grown too weighty with her sacrilege, and here discerned sophisticate enough, turns to the antipodes, and all the forms that her illusions have impressed in her have eaten through her back, and now all see how she is riveted with hypocrisy. Was this the way? Was he the mean betwixt you?
He was. He was. Kind, worthy man, he was.
Write a word or two.
I will. I will. I'll write, but with my blood, that he may see these lines come from my wounds, and not from me.
And she writes.
Well might he die for thought. Methinks the frame and shaken joints of the whole world should crack to see her parts so disproportionate, and that his general beauty cannot stand without these stains in the particular man. Why wander I so far? Here was she that was a whole world without spot to me, though now a world of spots. Oh, what a lightning is man's delight in women, what a bubble he builds his state, fame, life on when he marries. Since all earth's pleasures are so short and small, the way to enjoy it is to abjure it all. Enough. I must be messenger myself, disguised like this strange creature. In I'll after, to see what guilty light gives the cave eyes, and to the world sing new impieties.
And he puts the friar back down into the vault and follows. She wraps herself in the arras and, or closes the curtains. Anyway, exit. Wow. There's a lot of stuff to take in there. Certainly the edition I'm looking at here infers that when the servants come in, they are bringing torture equipment. That during that speech and before, so when the friar comes in, he is seeing Vincent Price having turned and pulled out the Iron Maiden and set up the pendulum, because Montsurry really has gone full extra here, and you know this is some really potentially very graphic stuff. There's a real interesting question because he's torturing her until she writes, and of course our friendly demon did mention a whole thing about her bleeding. Anyway, Lynn, but there's a lot of stuff to unpack here.
So Rob did not actually read aloud. To me, the sort of culminating weirdness of this scene, which is the stage direction, excellent servants. Like, okay, this like crazy scene between a man and his wife, and like, who was he? I won't tell you. I'll torture. I'll stab you until like. And then the friar shows up and falls dead as the stage direction. Presumably, Montsurry kills him. Anyway, I mean, like this crazy scene, and there have been servants just standing there watching the whole thing unfold.
Or for that matter, manhandling her into some sort of torture device.
Or helping.
And assisting. So, you know, or pain technicians.
Yeah, these non-speaking, like, servants gotta do what servants gotta do. It's quite crazy.
Yeah, and also there's this question about the friar. Does the friar just come in and so the scene is so horrific that he just drops on the spot? Or because there's no indication. He just comes on stage and dies. That's all the script gives us. And there's an interesting question about maybe they wouldn't go so far as to kill the friar. The friar just has to die. And there's a reason for that. Helen?
Yes, I think as far as the torture goes, what's happened is that she's been strung up, presumably by the arms, because she says, "Let me down, my lord, and I will write." So presumably they've shackled her and then hauled her up. So she's hanging by her arms.
Yeah. Whereas
with weights on her feet or something awful.
Whereas earlier it's just knife action, which is again very visceral and in a relative, because when it says stabs her, I mean, it doesn't have to be, it's not death stabbing here. It's torture. It's just inflicting a wound. It's something precise. And Montsurry is really coming. I mean, when he goes off on one while she's not writing, and that's a fascinating bit of business. Once again, we've got these long speeches, but at the same time as there is an important bit of, for want of a better word, action. I mean, there's nothing happening in a sense. He's standing there over her. She's not writing. He is getting more angry every time she doesn't write. And his disturbing fantasies just come pouring out. I mean, it really, he is just losing it as this play is going on. If we're looking for a psychological journey for an actor to progress with, this character's got one. And it's not a nice one, to the point where people are sort of talking about, we're moving in the general direction of cannibalism. I mean, I was going to say that's last month. Aliki.
So I don't really get why she changes her mind when she does. The timing suggests that it's the killing of the friar or the dying of the friar that does it, and I don't understand why that's the thing that would put you over the edge.
Because the friar did it.
Tortured.
Yeah.
So she can reveal him when he's dead. She's protecting him up to the point he dies.
Yeah. I mean,
she's protecting him, but she's not protecting what's his face? Bussy.
I think we're beyond that point. The husband knows that. He knows that element of the story.
Thank you. That makes sense.
He doesn't know who the go-between, and she's not going to give up a priest. And especially, you've got to remember the beginning of the scene. The priest is going, "Oh, you don't want to find that stuff out. You don't need it. It's fine. And he's
it's more sinful to know than not to know.
Yeah, he really tries to put him off and fails.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, also the friar was the guarantor of her, not exactly safety, but that she would survive the whatever happened. If you remember at the beginning, when the friar leaves, he leaves on the understanding that he won't do anything more than becomes a husband. So I think she's lost her guarantor. Also, the choice of writing in blood is hers.
Well,
it's got nothing to do with her husband because he provided a standish, which is an inkwell.
Well, there was a previous letter written in blood between her and Bussy in the first session, and I don't quite remember what the justification was for there, but I presume this one here is to mirror that one, and generally, I mean, there's a bloody letter penchant in this play,
and to make good the prophecy of the senior devil.
Okay. Any other thoughts, Brian?
Yeah, a small one, kind of quite tangential and wouldn't probably matter in performance, but Montsurry, one of the earlier speeches of Montsurry in that scene says, "Sing and put all the nets into thy voice." And he goes on and says, "Sing, that is right, and take from mine eyes the mists that hide the most inscrutable pander." And I can't help but hear in that something like, "Sing, goddess of the anger of Achilles."
Yeah.
Or even I mean, it's later, of man's first disobedience, sing. Or Muse, the causes and the crimes relate. There are precedents for that, and Chapman knows them.
Yeah.
And he's asking, and he's at that stage asking after the panda, which is the friar.
Yes. Yeah. He doesn't know it, but that's who he's after. Yeah.
Eric.
I'm just wondering why he doesn't kill Bussy instead of killing like all these people in between.
Well, it's a progression,
that's why we start with Caro. Is like
he needs to find out the information, and work in, get all the information out of the primaries before he the secondaries before he goes on and takes out the primaries. And he has access to these people. He doesn't immediately have access to Bussy, and plus Bussy can fight back. We know he's killed 5 people, so you don't go into taking out Bussy without knowing in advance.
He only killed 3 people. His enemies killed his 2 friends.
Oh well, anyway, Alan.
I think the other thing is that Montsurry is possibly aware that D'Ambois is chummy with the king. Therefore, taking him out prematurely might not be a good career move.
Yeah, lots of options there. Okay, we're going to move forward. It occurred to me, Lynn, I can't ask you to read Murderers because they talk at the same time as the Friar. So I will give that to Alan when the Murderers come up.
What do you mean they talk at the same time as the Friar? The Friar is dead.
So
my ghost comes back.
So, since when has that been a way of stopping people saying dialogue? Anyway, now at this point in the play, there are significant variations as to the order of scenes as well as materials. So, depending on which version you're reading, this will be what happens. If not, this bit happens later on in the play. So, I don't think there's anything missing. It's just in a different place. Just for anyone reading along at home. Act 5, Scene 2. Enter Monsieur and Guise.
Now shall we see that nature hath no end in her great works responsive to their worths. That she that makes so many eyes and souls to see and foresee is stark blind herself, and as illiterate men say Latin prayers by rote of heart and daily iteration, not knowing what they say, so nature lays a deal of stuff together, and by use, or by the mere necessity of matter, and such a work fills it or leaves it empty of strength or virtue, error, or clear truth, not knowing what she does, but usually gives that which we call merit to a man. And belief must arrive him on huge riches, honor, and happiness that affects his ruin. Even as in ships of war whole lasts of powder are laid, methinks, to make them last, and guard them when a disordered spark, that powder taking, blows up. With sudden violence and horror, ships that kept empty had sailed long with terror.
He that observes but like a worldly man that which doth oft succeed, and by the events values the worth of things, will think it true that nature works at random, just with you. But with as much proportion she may make a thing that from the feet up to the throat hath all the wondrous fabric man should have, and leave it headless for a perfect man. As give a full man valor, virtue, learning without an end, more excellent than those on whom she no such worthy part bestow.
Yet shall you see it here? Here will be one young, learned, valiant, virtuous, and full manned, one on whom nature spent so rich a hand that with an ominous eye she wept to see, so much consumed her virtuous treasury. Yet as the winds sing through a hollow tree, and since it lets them pass through, lets it stand, but a tree solid, since it gives no way to their wild rage, they rent up by the root. So this whole man that will not wind with every crooked way, trod by the servile world, shall reel and fall before the frantic puffs of blind-born chance that pipes through empty men and makes them dance. Not so as the sea raves on the Libyan sands, tumbling her billows in each other's neck, not so the surges of the Euxine Sea, near to the frosty pole, where free Boetes from those dark deep waves turns his radiant team, swell, being enraged even from their inmost drop, as fortune swings about the state of virtue, now thrown into all men's hate.
Enter Montsurry disguised with the murderers.
Away, my lord, you are perfectly disguised. Leave us to lodge your ambush.
Speed my vengeance.
Exit Montsurry.
Resolve, my masters, you shall meet with one. We'll try what proofs your privy costs are made on. When he is entered and you hear a stamp, approach and make all sure.
We will, my lord.
And they exit. Anyone else find that scene very impenetrable?
It's like, why all of a sudden are they talking about this? What's the point?
It's not even why are they talking, just what are they actually
Really
talking
funny.
about? I mean, it just slid off my brain. All of that, except for the bit at the end, and you know, enter murderers. I mean, I don't know if murderers enter with a sign on that, you know, saying "Hello, we are murderers," because they don't actually quite make it clear they're murderers within the text spoken on stage. So yeah, that's an odd little bit, and I'm interested in actually the structure of why things move around as well, because this is all here, it's just somewhere else in the text apart from that bit, which was sort of there, but then it leads into the next bit. It's all structurally, I'm curious, but I'm not sure what this bit does, really. Lynn?
It kind of rehearses the play, what the play was doing in the beginning, where Bussy in particular was just sort of making rhetorical proclamations about the nature of society and human beings and stuff, just like generalizations about the way things are. And that's what Monsieur talks about. It's like nature is a blind goddess, and usually it's fate that's supposed to be a blind goddess, but she's like someone who says Latin prayers and doesn't know what she's saying. She makes stuff, but she doesn't know what she's doing. So yeah, it's in a way it's a weird callback to that very formal and rhetorical stuff that was going on in the first scene or two. I'm not sure what to make of that, but that's what I observed.
Eric, then Brian.
Yeah, it's one of those that you need to read and reread and work out where the clauses are, because like it's I mean the brackets help, but yeah, for those who are not like looking at the script, it's very much sort of, here will be one, so nature man, and so on and so forth, one on whom nature has spent so much, and then it's like, what? He gets so wrapped up in his own metaphor that you forget what you're talking about. So you either do it that way, or you just like really have to reread and reread and reread. Yeah, basically he's talking about murdering people as far as I can tell.
Brian.
I take this to be doing two things. It's a moment of reflection between the two leaders of the opposition in what's going to be a downfall. And so one thing it's doing is sort of foreshadowing the direction we're headed, that there will be a powder sparking and blows up and sudden violence and horror. And part of it is reflecting back on what we've learned about Bussy. I think they're thinking about him, and they're seeing him as an example of the way the world works, what nature is, and what they're up against in life. That he's like a ship that's loaded with too much powder that could defend it, but is actually going to blow off destructively without actually serving a great purpose. Or that he is a man of valor, virtue, and learning with no more greater end than anyone else, in spite of all those gifts.
Yeah, it'll be helpful if they use some names occasionally.
Yep.
It's just this frustrating thing. Everything's so vague in the way that, you know, there are obviously themes and there's things, but it's nothing to really just bring it to connect with everything else, and that makes it really difficult to deal with. Eric?
I just like the sort of bit where, you know, Montsurry enters disguised, and it's like, oh yeah, you know, you're perfectly disguised. It's like sort of that's how good his disguise is.
Hey man, your disguise, I can see your disguise so well.
Yeah. I mean, obviously they've plotted this beforehand, but it's just hilarious as a moment
like,
in the play.
Yeah, great disguise. Lynn, then Alίκη, then we'll move on.
I think Brian's absolutely right. They're talking about Bussy. Now that you bring that up, it's like, oh yeah, a ship crammed with powder. And this is going to sound really, really flaky, but I wonder if actors could do some actor magic with this. An actor or director once told me, and then I passed this on to some actors in an early modern play with a lot of very rich imagery in the language. If you imagine in your head, if you visualize in your head the scene that you're describing, the audience will get it. I didn't really believe it when I said it, but they they took my advice, and I'll be damned if it didn't work. Those speeches were brilliant, and you could see it because they could see it. I mean, it makes no damn sense. There's like no scientific explanation for that, but it does seem to work. It's a trick that seems to work. And I wonder if the actors knew in their own hearts and heads, we are talking about Bussy, if the audience would get it.
You just kind of want Bussy to walk by just before they come on, and they just go, and then they start talking. That's sort of all you need.
That totally works. In the early days of film, they discovered that if you did a close-up of a person's face without a particularly legible expression, and then did a shot of food, the audience is like, oh, that person portrayed hunger brilliantly.
Aliki.
I just wanted to have a moment of appreciation for the dramaturgy here, in which we have all of these elaborate, and yes, I too agree with Brian, images about the character, and then the actual plot point comes on for a moment. Everybody goes, yeah, you're set to go. Off you go to the rest of the plot, and they keep talking philosophy. That's lovely.
That goes with Helen's point about the ratio of plot to talk.
Yeah. Okay, let's move into Act 5, Scene 3. Again, depending on precisely how this, which text you're looking at, this will vary. But Act 5, Scene 3 here, D'Ambois enters with 2 pages with tapers.
Sit up tonight and watch. I'll speak with none but the old friar who bring to me.
We will, sir.
Exeunt pages.
What violent heat is this? Methinks the fire of 20 lives doth on a sudden flash through all my faculties. The air goes high in this close chamber, and the frighted earth trembles and shrinks beneath me. The whole house nods with his shaken burthen.
Enter the ghost of the friar.
Bless me, heaven.
Note what I want, dear son, and be forewarned. Oh, there are bloody deeds past and to come. I cannot stay. A fate doth ravish me. I'll meet thee in the chamber of thy love.
Exit the ghost of the friar.
What dismal change is here? The good old friar is murdered, being made known to serve my love, and now his restless spirit would forewarn me of some plot, dangerous and imminent. Note what he wants. He wants his upper weed. He wants his life and body. Which of these should be the want he means, and may supply me with any fit forewarning? This strange vision, together with the dark prediction used by the Prince of Darkness that was raised by this embodied shadow, stir my thoughts with reminiscence of the spirit's promise, who told me that by any invocation I should have power to raise him, though it wanted the powerful words and decent rites of art. Never had my brain such need of spirit to instruct and cheer it. Now then, I will claim performance of his free and gentle vow to appear in greater light, and make more plain his rugged oracle. I long to know how my dear mistress fares, and be informed what hand she now holds on the troubled blood of her incensed lord. Methought the spirit, when he had uttered his perplexed presage, threw his changed countenance headlong into clouds, his forehead bent, as it would hide his face. He knocked his chin against his darkened breast, and struck a churlish silence through his powers. O terror of darkness! Oh, thou king of flames, that with thy music-footed horse dost strike the clear light out of crystal on dark earth, and hurlst instructive fire about the world, wake. Wake the drowsy and enchanted night that sleeps with dead eyes in this heavy riddle. Or thou, great prince of shades, where never sun sticks his far-darted beams, whose eyes are made to shine in darkness and see ever best where men are blindest, open now the heart of thy abashed oracle, that, for fear of some ill it includes, would fain lie hid, and rise thou with it in thy greater light.
Thunders! The spirit of Behemoth springs up with his devils. Thus, to observe my vow of apparition in greater light and explicate thy fate, I come, and tell thee that if thou obey the summons that thy mistress next will send thee, her hand shall be thy death.
When will she send?
Soon as I set again where late I rest. Arose.
Is the old friar slain?
No, and yet lives not.
Died he a natural death?
He did.
Who then will my mistress send?
I must not tell thee.
Who lets thee?
Fate.
Who are fate's ministers?
The Guise and Monsieur.
A fit pair of shears to cut the threads of kings and kingly spirits, and consorts fit to sound forth harmony, set to the falls of kingdoms. Shall the hand of my kind mistress kill me?
If thou yield to her next summons, ye're fair warned. Farewell! Exit Behemoth.
I must farewell. However, though I die, my death consenting with his augury, should not my powers obey when she commands, my motion must be rebel to my will to life. If, when I have obeyed, her hand should so reward me, they must arm it, bind me, or force it. Or I lay my life, she rather would convert it many times on her own bosom, even to many deaths. But were there danger of such violence, I know 'tis far from her intent to send. And who she should send is far as from thought, since he is dead, whose only means she used.
There's a knock at the door.
Who's there? Look to the door and let him in, though politic Monsieur or the violent Guise.
Enter Montsurry, like the Friar, with a letter written in blood.
Hail to my worthy son.
Oh, lying spirit, to say the Friar was dead. I'll now believe nothing of all his forged predictions. My kind and honoured father, well revived. I've been frighted with your death, and mine, and told my mistress' hand should be my death if I obeyed this summons.
I believed your love had been much clearer then to give any such doubt a thought, for she is clear, and having freed her husband's jealousy, of which her much abuse at hand here is witness, she prays for urgent cause your instant presence.
Why then, your prince of spirits may be called the prince of liars.
Holy Writ so calls him?
What, writ in blood?
Aye, 'tis the ink of lovers.
Oh, 'tis a sacred witness of her love. So much elixir of her blood as this, dropped in the lightest dame, would make her firm as heat to fire, and like to all the signs commands the life confined in all my veins. Oh, how it multiplies my blood with spirit, and makes me apt to encounter death and hell. But come, kind father, you fetch me to heaven, and to that end your holy weed was given.
And exit. And once again, early modern disguise strikes. It is one thing for him to walk into a room and hand over a letter disguised as the Friar and go, oh no, the Friar's not alive. It's for him to have a conversation and him just going, hang on, you're Montsurry. And, you know, for goodness sake, Behemoth, why do you hire these demons? What is the point of hiring demons if you don't listen to them? I'm sorry. You know, oh, God. You just can't get the staff. Lynn, then Eric.
Yeah, if anybody stumbles on this video and is just listening rather than watching, when Bussy says, oh, then the spirit was lying to me, I was rolling my eyes and Alίκη was slapping her forehead. We're just like, yeah. What? No, the spirits don't. You just saw the ghost of the. I mean, it's great. It's not like, oh, she shouldn't have written it that way. Of course, you should have written it this way because it's the way plays work. But I just, in a way, it's a great moment because you just No, that's just the worst. Run away and you'll be fine. Go to see Tamyra. You're gonna die. But you can't go. He can't stay away. Oh,
yeah. Just don't go there. You've been told. Don't do the thing. I mean, it's not even like it was a clever dodge or something of going, oh, it wasn't. No, it's just explicitly ignoring.
Oh, it's not the oracle saying, if you go to war, a great empire will fall.
No,
meaning yours. Yeah. No, I mean, for once, it's actually a supernatural source being quite straightforward.
I mean, to be fair, the Friar earlier only got 4 lines out before being sucked back to whichever dimension he lives in. And I did think he could have been a bit more explicit at that point of saying some stuff.
Yeah.
You know, he only actually did 2 lines before he went, oh, I've got to go.
And he doesn't say, I am the Friar's spirit, I'm dead. So I guess Bussy could rationalize to himself, oh, he just came back again?
But we do know the Friar died of natural causes now, so we can confirm he definitely just went and died.
For production reasons, that's good to know, so you know how to stage that.
Eric.
I was just going to say that it's kind of that thing of, well, you know, spirits lie. You summon them from hell. What else would they do? They're kind of like, they've got other shit to do, so maybe they're kind of skipping over things. I don't know, maybe that's Bussy's logic. Or he just doesn't trust whatever. Like, if you want to justify it, or he's just got that thing of, oh no, this scary house can't possibly be dangerous. There's nothing dangerous in there. You know, like no needles or, you know, killers.
I mean, but, you know, my experience of demons is they always pretty much tell the truth. I mean, you know, they might equivocate a bit, but most of the time they turn up, they tell you, I'm going to stake your soul or whatever, and it's fine. And, you know...
there's no catch.
It's very straightforward. Letter written in blood, of course, that we already knew about because we were there. And, so that's probably that earlier scene must have been quite messy. So, yeah... Anyway, on that cheerful note, let's go into Act 5, Scene 4, or Scene 3, depending on your interpretation of the text, because this could be continuance of an earlier bit that was somewhere else. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Act 5, Scene 4, Thunder. You know, when I bought this, I didn't think I was going to get any use out of it. Enter the ghost of the Friar and discovers Tamyra wrapped in a canopy.
Up with these stupid thoughts, still loved daughter, and strike away this heartless trance of anguish. Be like the sun and labor in eclipses. Look to the end of woes. Oh, can you sit mustering the horrors of your servant's slaughter before your contemplation, and not study how to prevent it? Watch then, he shall rise, and, with a sudden outcry of his murder, blow his retreat before he be revenged.
Oh, Father, have my dumb woes waked to your death? When will our human griefs be at their height? Man is a tree that hath no top in cares, no root in comforts. All his power to live is given to no end, but to have power to grieve.
It is the misery of our creation, your true friend, led by your husband, shadowed in my weed, now enters the dark vault.
But my dearest father, why will you not appear to him yourself and see that none of these deceits annoy him?
My power is limited. Alas, I cannot. All that I cannot. All that I can do. See, the cave opens.
Exit the ghost of Friar. Enter D'Ambois at the gulf.
Away, my love! Away! Thou wilt be murdered!
Enter Monsieur and Guise above.
Murdered? I know not what that Hebrew means. That word had ne'er been named, had all been D'Ambois. Murdered. By heaven, he is my murderer that shows me not a murderer. What such bug abhorreth not the very sleep of D'Ambois? Murdered. Who dares give all the room I see to D'Ambois' reach, or look with any odds his fight in the face, upon whose hands sits death, whose sword hath wings, and every feather pierceth? If I escape Monsieur's apothecary shops, for tear for Guise's shambles, 'twas ill plotted. They should have mauled me here when I was rising. I am up and ready. Let in my politic visitants, let them in, though entering like so many moving armours. Fate is more strong than arms and sly than treason, and I, at all parts, buckled in my fate.
Why enter
They're
not
not
the
the
coward
coward
villains?
Dare they not come?
Enter murderers with Ghost of Friar at the other door. Oh, we lost both those lines.
Come, all at once.
Back! Coward murderers, back!
All fly and exit, but the first murderer.
Come ye not on.
No, slave, nor goest thou off. Stand you so firm?
Strikes at him with his sword.
Will it not enter here? You have a face yet, so, in thy life's flame, I burn the first rights to my mistress' fame.
Breathe thee, brave son, against the other charge.
Oh, is it true, then, that my sense first told me? Is my kind father dead?
He is, my love. 'Twas the Earl, my husband, in his weed that brought thee.
That was a speeding sleight, and well resembled. Where is that angry Earl? My lord, come forth and show your own face in your own affair. Take not into your noble veins the blood of these base villains, nor the light reports of blistered tongues for clear and weighty truth, but me against the world in pure defence of your rare lady, to whose spotless name I stand here as a bulwark, and project a life to her renown that ever yet hath been untainted even in envy's eye, and where it would protect a sanctuary. Brave Earl, come forth and keep your scandal in. 'Tis not our fault if you enforce the spot, nor the wreck yours if you perform it not.
Enter Montsurry with all the murderers.
Cowards! A fiend or spirit beat ye off. They are your own faint spirits that have forged the fearful shadows that your eyes deluded. The fiend was in you. Cast him out then, thus.
And Montsurry fights with D'Ambois. D'Ambois hath Montsurry down.
Favour, my lord, my love, oh, favour him.
I will not touch him. Take your life, my lord, and be appeased.
Pistol shots within. Bang, bang.
Oh! Damn, the coward fates have maimed themselves and ever lost their honour.
What have you done, slaves? Irreligious lord.
Forbear them, father. 'Tis enough for me that Guise and Monsieur, death and destiny, come behind D'Ambois. Oh, is my body then but penetrable flesh? And must my mind follow my blood? Can my divine part add no aid to the earthly in extremity? Oh, then these defines are but for form, not fact. Man is of two sweet, courtly friends compact, a mistress and a servant. Let my death define life nothing but a courtier's breath. Nothing is made of naught. Of all things made, their abstract being a dream but of a shade. I'll not complain to earth yet, but to heaven, and, like a man, look upwards, even in death. And if Vespasian thought in majesty an emperor might die standing, why not I?
She offers to help him.
Nay, without help, in which I will exceed him, for he died splintered with his chamber grooms. Prop me, true sword, as thou hast ever done. The equal thought I bear of life and death shall make me faint on no side. I am up. Here, like a Roman statue I will stand, till death hath made me marble. O my fame, live in despite of murder. Take thy wings and haste thee where the grey-eyed morn perfumes her rosy chariot with Sabian spices. Fly, where the evening from the Iberian vales takes on her swarthy shoulders, Hecate, crowned with a grove of oaks. Fly, where men feel the burning axle-tree, and those that suffer beneath the chariot of the snowy bear, and tell them all that D'Ambois now is hasting to the eternal dwellers, that a thunder of all their sighs together, for their frailties beheld in me, may quit my worthless fall with a fit volley for my funeral.
Forgive thy murderers.
I forgive them all. And you, my lord, their fodder, for true sign of which unfeigned remission, take my sword. Take it, and only give it motion, and it shall find the way to victory by his own brightness, and the inherent valour my fight hath stilled into it with charms of spirit. Now, let me pray you that my weighty blood, laid in one scale of your impartial spleen, may sway the forfeit of my worthy love weighed in the other, and be reconciled with all forgiveness to your matchless wife.
Forgive thou me, dear servant, and this hand that led thy life to this unworthy end, forgive it for the blood with which 'tis stained, in which I writ the summons of thy death, the forced summons. By this bleeding wound, by this here in my bosom, and by this that makes me hold up both my hands imbrued for thy dear pardon.
Oh, my heart is broken. Fate, nor these murderers, Monsieur, nor the Guise, have any glory in my death. But this killing spectacle, this prodigy, my son is turned to blood, in whose red beams Pindus and Ossa, hid in drifts of snow, laid on my heart and liver. From their veins melt, like two hungry torrents, eating rocks into the ocean of all human life, and make it bitter only with my blood. Oh, frail condition of strength, valour, virtue in me, like warning fire upon the top of some steep beacon on a steeper hill, made to express it, like a falling star, silently glanced, that like a thunderbolt looked to have struck, and shook the firmament.
And Bussy dies.
Farewell, brave relic of a complete man. Look up and see thy spirit made a star. Join flames with Hercules, and when thou setst thy radiant forehead in the firmament, make the vast crystal crack with thy receipt. Spread to a world of fire, and the aged sky cheer with new sparks of old humanity. Son of the earth, whom my unrested soul rues to have begotten in the faith of heaven, essay to gratulate and pacify the soul fled from this worthy, by performing the Christian reconcilement he besought betwixt thee and thy lady. Let her wounds manlessly digged in her be eased and cured with balm of thine own tears, or be assured never to rest free from my haunt and horror.
See how she merits this, still kneeling by and mourning his fall more than her own fault.
Remove, dear daughter, and content thy husband, so piety wills thee, and thy servant's peace.
O wretched piety, that art so distract in thine inconstancy, and in thy right must be unrighteous. If I right my friend, I wrong my husband. If his wrong I shun, the duty to my friend I leave undone. Ill plays on both sides, here and there it riseth. No place, no good, so good, but ill compriseth. Oh, had I never married but for form, never vowed faith but purposed to deceive, never made conscience of any sin but cloaked it privately and made it common, nor never honoured been in blood or mind, Happy had I been then, as others are of the like licence. I had then been honoured, lived without envy. Custom had benumbed all sense of scruple and all note of frailty. My fame had been untouched, my heart unbroken. But shunning all, I strike on all offence. O husband, dear friend, oh my conscience.
That's away. My senses are not proof against those plaints.
Exeunt Guise and Monsieur above. D'Ambois is borne off.
I must not yield to pity, nor to love so servile and so traitorous. Cease, my blood, to wrestle with my honour, fame, and judgment. Away, forsake my house, forbear complaints where thou hast bred them. Here all things are full of their own shame and sorrow. Leave my house.
Sweet Lord, forgive me, and I will be gone. Until these wounds, that never balm shall close till death hath entered them, so I love them, being opened by your hands, by death be cured. I never more will grieve you with my sight. Never endure that any roof shall part mine eyes and heaven, but to the open deserts, like to a hunted tigress, I will fly, eating my heart, shunning the steps of men, and look on no side till I be arrived.
I do forgive thee, and upon my knees, with hands held up to heaven, wish that mine honour would suffer reconcilement to my love. But since it will not, honour never serve my love with flourishing object till it starve. And as this taper, though it upwards look, downwards must needs consume, so let our love. As having lost his honey, the sweet taste runs into savour, and will needs retain a spice of his first parents, till, like life, it sees and dies. So let our love. And lastly, as when the flame is suffered to look up, it keeps his lustre, but being thus turned down, his natural course of useful light inverted, his own stuff puts out. So let our love. Now turn from me, as here I turn from thee, and may both points of heaven's straight axletree conjoin in one before thyself and me.
And they exit severally. But before we go to the epilogue, I in your version, you don't have a final speech by the ghost. I'm sorry, I can't give it to Lynn because you can't see it. But I have it here. The ghost says, "My terrors are struck inward, and no more. My penance will allow they shall enforce. Earthly afflictions are but upon myself. Farewell, brave relics of a complete man." Unless this was earlier and you've already said it, I don't know. I'm now getting confused, but I'll keep saying it anyway. Join flames with Hercules, and when thou settest up thy radiant forehead in the firmament, make the vast continent cracked with thy receipt, spread to a world of fire, and the aged sky cheer with new sparks of old humanity. And then we get an epilogue in one version.
With many hands you have seen D'Ambois slain, yet by your grace he may revive again, and every day grow stronger in his skill, to please, as we presume he is in will. The best deserving actors of the time had their ascents, and by degrees did climb to their full height, a place to study due, to make him tread in their path lies in view. He'll not forget his makers, but still prove his thankfulness as you increase your love.
And the play ends, and we'll just wait for the sequel. For yes, they will arise again in the revenge of Bussy D'Ambois in 6 years' time.
Right.
There is a sequel, yes. It takes them 6 years to write it, but there will be a sequel. Who knows what's going to happen there? Yes, so that I didn't need to read that speech from the Ghost. The Ghost did indeed say it earlier in the later version. It's really interesting, actually, how the Ghost of the Friar is just sort of hanging around in this version. It's just, is anyone talking to him? Does everybody see him? It's sort of really weird.
Really weird.
And well, there's a lot of things about this ending that's quite weird. But we'll dance around all of those. Let's just say we get a fight scene. We get a massive fight scene implied here. But then at the high point of the fight, presumably, D'Ambois gets shot in the back. That's how I'm figuring that, by the Guise and Monsieur, probably from above. That's sort of what's the implication of that is. We've been getting increasingly more firearms action on stage. It seems to be becoming more of a thing. Once we've left the Elizabethan, there's a lot more gunfire going on. So that's interesting. I have lots of thoughts, but I'll go to Lynn.
Yeah, there's very literary about this. I mean, I usually object to critical biography. I don't feel like those two categories should overlap. But I mean, we do know that the author was a classicist. He was steeped in the classics. Not very many people read Greek at this point, and he did. So I just feel I just feel like this is definitely a play written by someone who is immersed in classical literature. And you know, I said, I think in the first day, there's something sort of archaic about the play, and there's something sort of archaic about Bussy's character. He's sort of the medieval knight in the early modern world, which is one of the reasons he's such a misfit. And I feel like that take has really been vindicated in this last scene, because thinking like a literary scholar, here's Bussy fighting hand to hand with the old-fashioned symbol of knighthood and practical weapon, the sword, and he gets shot in the back by pistols, the new technology. And then when he gets up, he leans on his sword. He uses his sword as a kind of crutch to help him up. And the friar calls him a relic. He's a relic of the past. So I think in many ways, his fate, his downfall, his inability to integrate is because he's a relic of the past. He's a medieval man, and this is the modern world, and he can't survive in it.
Oh, I do really like that. The modernity kills him. That's a really nice idea. I like that. Okay, yeah. So we get. I mean, in a sense, there's something also very up to date, or then up to date, about D'Ambois' death scene. I mean, it does feel like that's doing things that are happening in other plays, and is going for it, because it is a pucker aria, isn't it? It's you know, the play ain't over until the person who's just been shot gets to do an incredibly long, torturous farewell scene, which I thought landed mostly rather well, but I was looking ahead going, oh no, he's still going. But again, thinking about this as action, it tells us what's happening there. He's standing, he's trying to stand, he's leaning on his sword, he's going to get lower and lower and lower and dead. So it's not just I am lying there doing a speech. The whole speech actually has a flow in a physical world, which I find really interesting. And then we get Tamyra and Montsurry's reconciliation, which I'm kind of thinking might get cut from a solo production. We have to see what happens with the revenge. I mean, closing credits. Bussy will return in the revenge, coming next season. And I will ask everyone later on their predictions. How do you do a sequel to a play where you've killed your central character? Anyone who's watched films from the last 50, 60, 70 years, ask yourselves about how sequels function. Many examples there. Helen?
Yes. I mean, I was having a lot of trouble with Tamyra in that last scene. The first shock was when she actually saves her husband's life. I mean, this guy has tortured her.
Yeah.
Killed her best friend, the friar. Well, he hasn't killed her, but he's caused the death. He has forced her to betray her lover to his death, and yet she saves his life. And there was something really, really weird there.
Yeah. Other thoughts? I'm liking the stuff in the chat about sequels here. I just saying. Walking out of the shower. It's a Sherlock Holmes situation. I'm liking these things. I'm liking these things. Eric.
I just kind of feel like, well, we didn't really I don't think anyone would be really sad about Bussy being killed, aside from maybe Tamyra's character. Like, as an audience, we're kind of, I mean, like, he's not really likable particularly. Like, he's the guy, he's meant to be the guy. I think it's supposed to be the stereotype of, the cad with a heart of gold type thing. But he's not really, I wouldn't say that at all. Like, yeah, I know, maybe that's me.
Yeah, this is the thing, and this is the thing for a lot of plays of the period where you have the inverted commas hero who's not necessarily actually awfully nice, but they are the central of the action, and we are supposed to be terribly moved. I was sort of moved by his death. I wasn't wholly unmoved. I mean, the thing about this play is that pretty much none of it should happen. There isn't much plot. Actually, the whole killing the king is a massive MacGuffin. It doesn't go anywhere. We haven't seen the king this section here at all. It's sort of an excuse for the introduction of him to the court. He has an affair. The husband gets horribly jealous and tortures his wife to lure him into a trap and kills him. It's a very simple plot, and it's doing a lot of other stuff at the same time. And I'm really interested in unpicking some of that. Again, that's a future thing, and also unpicking the different versions of the text as well. So yeah, I'm really liking this stuff in the chat. It's very good. Son of Bussy.
Like.
Again, yeah, that's one. Yeah.
Brian got that first, but I missed it.
Yeah, it's actually Lynn's points just there, and is not only does the actor who plays Bussy need to be preternaturally charismatic, he plainly was in the original production. The prologue tells us that Field made his name as this part. So and I think Sarah, regardless of whether you liked the man, you were sort of you got some good death speech there. That was some stuff to play.
I did get some good death speeches. I mean, yeah, I did. I really didn't enjoy him until I had that kind of very slow revelation yesterday about like what he was actually doing, and then actually once that had occurred to me, once the light had finally struck, like I kind of could get a handle on what he was doing, then I actually did enjoy him as a character. I mean, I didn't like him. I thought he was ghastly, but as a character, yeah. But as a character, as a sort of, villainous protagonist, I mean, I don't know. I honestly think it would be really easy to do a very bad production of this, where he comes across as just really dull. But anyway, that's saving that for the final thought, so I'll be quiet now.
Lynn, then I think Aliki?
Yes, no. I can't help thinking about the classical framework, the classical mindset, I think, that created this. I was thinking earlier in this session, who Bussy is like? He's like Hercules, who is actually, we don't really perceive this so much in the 21st century, but in his own time, in the 5th century and BC and so forth, he was actually a highly ambiguous character in the classical Greek tradition. Yeah, he killed the Hydra and saved a bunch of people, but he also impregnated 50 women in one night. That's kind of gross. He killed his own family. He was just a man of uncontrollable supernatural appetites and supernatural strengths. He did a lot of bad stuff as well as a lot of good stuff. He was actually Hercules was a hero in the old sense of somebody that's just on a different level than human beings, although not quite a god. And he was like, ethically, he was quite ambiguous, and that's what Bussy is. And then, the Friar makes the direct comparison between Hercules and Bussy. He's a Hercules character, that powerful, impressive, charismatic, irresistible, but yet not good character.
Yeah, and I keep returning to the question of the court, or at least the upper echelons of the court. I think there's something here that we can play with in terms of that sense of class position here. I mean, it's all upper echelons. Nobody's really particularly low status. But this is a misfit who is brought into the court for a very specific purpose. And when he does not perform, and when he does naughty things, he is utterly rejected by the court. I think there's a reason why the king isn't in this third. It's because the king's on his side. He's the only person who's on his side. He's off doing something French, and this is happening, and that's really interesting to me. The core of this play is about 6 characters, and then there are some other people. And I wouldn't do it with only 6 actors and lots of doubling, because I think the court scenes in the first 2/3 are quite important. But I don't think you'd have to do this as a massive production, as I drift us towards final thoughts. So yeah, final thoughts about the play overall for those who've been here all week, or most of it. Yeah, it feels scalable. It feels doable. I think you need to make a big series of decisions about how it ends. Partly depends on whether we do the sequel or not as part of its repertoire, in which case there might be a very important structural reason for it to end the way it does. But there's something very odd about the way it ends, and deciding what to, do you just lights fade on Bussy and we're done. But yeah, there's a shorter version. There is already, before we get around to saying what cuts or changes we'd like to make, and that is also already makes it so much more manageable. I think it's got slightly fewer requirements of going down into the basement, so you don't need a trapdoor, I think, in the A text, whereas you do in the B text. So, but we got some demons, so that's always nice. Sarah, any final thoughts?
Yes. Yes, picking up where I left off. I don't think you just need to make big decisions about the end. I think you need to make big decisions about the whole play. Because this isn't one where everything's laid out neatly for you at the beginning, so that you know who's doing what and who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. And as you pointed out, Rob, everyone's ghastly. So it's like, that gives you as a director a really lovely opportunity to kind of decide how you're gonna what your vision is going to be for these characters and how you want them to come across. And then because I think the text will support slight different variations, and that's something that obviously, if you're the kind of director who likes doing that kind of thing, which I am, that's an absolute gift. What I was going to say before was, I think if you're not the sort of director who makes choices and likes to kind of just leave it to the cast to sort of organically find their way through the text, you're going to run into trouble really quickly with this text. You do need to make, I think, strong choices about which direction you want to take it in, and then play them to the hilt. And I think if you did that, this play could be an absolute joy on stage, which is interesting for me, because quite often when I don't like any of the characters, I don't like the play. But I did really enjoy this play because there were so many fun things in it. There were so many great speeches. There were so many little good exchanges. And the ending was just bonkers. And, I like the bonkers plays. I just wanted to say as well about the sequel. I haven't read the sequel. I know nothing about the sequel. But I'm like, one of my favorite plays that we've ever read is obviously the Spanish tragedy and Geronimo, and I'm like, based on that, I'm assuming the sequel is going to be D'Ambois coming back as a ghost, and exhorting Tamyra to revenge on her husband. Put it this way, that's the sequel I want. And whether that happens or not, just like the way Hieronymo's son comes back and exhorts him to revenge the ghost of his son, that I think is just like, that would be a fabulous sequel. And if that turns out to be the sequel, or if it doesn't but the sequel turns out to be good, then I think you should leave that ending, because I really actually like that ending, just because it's so weird. It's such a weird way to end a tragedy. I think it would nonplus the audience, and I'm kind of in favour of doing that. Yes.
Yeah. Alan, any final thoughts?
I don't think you need to fiddle with the plot to confuse the audience. The language is more than enough to do that. I mean, for a classicist, Chapman may have known an awful lot about Greek drama and classical languages, but he's bloody awful at English syntax. Much of it is really impenetrable, in my view, and I found it very, very difficult to follow with what was going on because of the convoluted way it was expressed.
Yeah, but there is a question there as to whether that's a cold read problem rather than actually the clarity of the language. I don't think the language is actually that unclear per se. I could be wrong. I'm not going to say that as an absolute. There are certainly certain passages where he's not setting up what's going on enough, and I'm very aware that nobody's listening to me because everyone was looking at the dog. But yeah, I definitely think that's where you've got to start. Actually, there are some plays where you sort of go, well, the language, it will come. You've got a bit of grounding, but this is one where actually a lot of work on the text for the actors. Otherwise, clarity is difficult. But it does help that the plot is unbelievably simple. That you don't have too much to worry about hanging your hat on. Helen, you were only here for this session, so you haven't got as much of a chance necessarily to comment on the play overall. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, well, I did read up to where we were starting, being a good student. But, yeah, I read up to Act 4, Scene 2, and then it just started to go weird. So nothing prepared me in what I'd read up to then for what happened next, because I certainly did not expect spirits from the vasty deep. I did not expect that people would actually walk away at the end. I mean, that was one of the biggest surprise to me, was that there was not your good old Renaissance tragedy heap of bodies. I mean, remarkably few people actually died. I mean, the Friar and Bussy, and a number of people were killed off during the monster duel.
Yes.
Perrault.
Perrault.
No,
yeah.
not dead. Didn't they?
No, not dead. You're
not
right.
Dead,
not dead.
just stabbed.
Yeah.
I mean, it might not say it wasn't a mortal wound, but it wasn't dead at that instant in time.
But I mean, the ending baffled me. So I would have to go back and see how much of it is signalled in advance. Not enough, I would suggest.
But I quite like the lack of signalling. That's sort of what I really find fascinating. Nobody expects the arrival of demonic life forms or Obi-Wan Kenobi coming back and bringing him into the fold at the end. If you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you could possibly imagine. But because the Friar is so I don't think the Friar says more when dead than alive, but he certainly says quite a lot of his dialogue whilst deceased. I mean, he's about a lot.
And the speech heading says Friar, not Ghost of Friar.
It does say Ghost in other versions. I standardised it.
Fair enough.
Because it's you might get confused. Some people occasionally get confused when you change names halfway through a play. I just kept the note in the stage directions. Lynn, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of want to bounce off of people that have talked already, so thank you. I think that Alan is not wrong, that the syntax can be really challenging, but I think Rob is also not wrong that that actors can parse it in a way that it makes sense. That the cold reading, it does some is part of the problem. I also think Sarah is spot on that you need to decide, a director producer needs to decide how they want the audience to engage with this. I mean, that's why I have this obsession with genre, because genre tells us how to read. And I didn't know how to read in the first session, and this play struck me as like so rhetorical and kind of stodgy and kind of old-fashioned, and I was having a hard time engaging with it. But by the second session, I was like, oh, I think I get it now. This play it's not Edward II. It's not a play about, or Woodstock. It's not a play about human failings and no. It's you know, it's something method actors might have a little bit of problem with, because it's not really about that. It really owes more to, even though some decades have elapsed, it really owes more to Spanish tragedy. That sort of over the topness, like things go so far south so fast in such a crazy way, and then layered over that is the rhetorical formality. So yeah, I think you need to the director needs to have a tone they're going for, and it's sort of a heightened reality. It's not, this is not a gritty reality. And I think if you do that, in a way, it lowers the stakes, because these people aren't really human beings. But it sort of heightens the fun. So you need to get that. You need to get that tone. It's so theatrical and so literary, and that's how you need to. That's how you need to do it. I've kind of forgotten what Helen said, because I had some, I had some sort of responses to her very smart comments, but I think I don't really remember that now. I've got too much in my head. But yeah, I mean, I think it's totally doable, and the simplicity of the plot is part of it. I mean, just last week we reread The Witch, which is like all plot. It's like all. Like, how can you even keep track of it? This is basically a guy comes to court, makes enemies, has sex with someone else's wife, gets killed for it. So the point is the emotions and the crazy, unexpected. Oh, the ending. Yeah, that's something I'm not really sure how you want to do. It's like, I can see one or two ways of doing it. That it's deliberately anticlimactic. We're expecting Montsurry, Monsieur, and Guise to all be dead, and maybe some random servants as well. That's the early modern, circa 1600 way of ending a decazibus tragedy, is everybody's dead. And really, the friar goes early, but his ghost is still there, so he's kind of not really gone. And so Bussy's the only one who dies. He's the one that doesn't fit in. He's the one from a past tradition. So the married people are in a way almost reconciled. So there's something really anticlimactic about that, and I wonder if that's the point. The other thing could be is like, Bussy is such a powerful character. You don't need anyone else to die. You don't want to detract from the tragedy of his death by having other bodies on stage. That's all about Bussy. So those are two different ways to do that.
I think one of the problems, of course, is it's also a history play. I mean, in the sense that, you know, you can't kill the Guise. You can't kill, you know, they don't die. Or they don't die yet, and they don't die in this way. So in that sense, you can't have that kind of. So and that sort of leads us back to, I think, to the setup of the play at the beginning. And, you know, it is a personal tragedy. It's about his death and his life. Which slightly goes against my court emphasis earlier, but hey, why not? I think this thing about the playing, it's all in the playing. It's all in the bold strokes and the physicality of this text. I know it looks on paper like it's all speeches and neoclassical leanings, but it's so physical, this text. There is so much physically happening with those speeches. Every one of them is an opportunity. And I think that's why actors grabbed the opportunity and ran with it, because it gave them something to do. Eric, any final thoughts? You missed the middle, but you came for the beginning and the end.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about this play. I kind of like, part of me wants to see it on its feet, and then the other part is like, nah, that's gonna be a bad film. Like, or like maybe you just turn it into a film that you want to be bad, like sort of like a parody, like the Revenge of the Father, or whatever we called it. I can't remember what the play was called at the moment. But yeah, with the Burning Crown and all that stuff, where it's intentionally making fun of another play. So I don't know. There's a part of me going like, maybe you can, yes, Hoffman, thank you, Sarah. I keep thinking something else. So yeah. Yeah, so there's a part of me going, maybe it's meant to be like that. Where it's over the top and you can just play it like almost a farce, but not quite. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you don't want to play. I mean, there is a danger with this play of slipping into bathos rather than pathos. I think that there is a danger there. When the friar dies, there is nothing worse than an onstage heart attack, because at that moment it could tip, and that's the danger. And that's why I think I'd move away from comedy. Or a certain kind of comedy for this. I mean, there are laughs to get out of the insult match in Act 3. I think that, there is humour there, but it's a certain kind of humour, and you've got to be quite controlled with this text, because otherwise it'll run away from you and you will be screwed. I mean, every tragedy has that. I mean, you can turn the revenge, Spanish tragedy or revenge tragedy. They can all turn into comedies very quickly, and then you may be trapped. Aliki, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm really afraid of exactly that you just mentioned. And there are directors, some in this room, I would trust to do that, but I certainly wouldn't want to try it myself. I think it's so tricky getting the tone right. I also agree that nobody here is likable. On the other hand, I mean, nobody's likable in Succession, and that was one of the most successful television shows of all time. So,
I've never cared whether anyone is likable, just as long as they're interesting. I mean,
I don't want everybody hateful. I find it distressing and glib. After a while, it's just like, oh, okay, just all of you die and go away and get out of my face.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Tamyra isn't a horrible person. I mean, she's doing something. She's having an affair.
She's a raging hypocrite.
Yeah.
Helen
that
played her very movingly for us, but I, who had kind of watched her through her evolution, couldn't have given a performance like that.
I actually quite like the Friar. I feel for the Friar, for Obi-Wan. Poor chap. But I suppose if you do conjure demons, that's what you get, isn't it? Really, Brian. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, some scattered ones. I'll start with a few thoughts on the rhetoric. Some of it's marvelously effective, like the Nuncius speech or the insults. And no question that survives and will be very powerful in a performance. But there are some places where Chapman has invested a great deal of energy, and I just don't see it working. One example would be Montsurry's last speech about the candle metaphor and how it should burn up their love. I resorted to the footnotes for that, and I get it, but I don't think that speech would survive in a modern performance. Another tricky part for the rhetoric would be the scene near the beginning where we started today, where the Guise and Monsieur are commenting on the character of Bussy indirectly without mentioning him, the one with the gunpowder ships, those two speeches. I think those are describing what the play is about, what world they live in, and where you end up at the end of this play, what you're left with. So they're really, Chapman's invested a lot in that. They're key to what he has to say. And I think audiences will have a lot of trouble with them, even if they follow them. They're very non-dramatic. And so I think you'll have challenges in making a lot of the rhetoric work, which is not to say the play couldn't work, but you won't get away from some of those hard parts, difficult choices to make.
Just on the taper one, I'm thinking about this in a performance in the space which would have had tapers. I mean, I'm kind of thinking that there's a connection with image on stage as well as image that they're playing with there, and that one felt straightforward. I didn't buy it. That's my problem. Is not I didn't understand it. I didn't buy it because that closing scene is so difficult to kind of get there with, but that's sort of what I really want to test on an audience, actually, because I'm sort of going,
sure,
what happens with this when you do
it's not that the metaphor is inaccessible, and it's not exactly that the rhetoric, that the syntax is twisted, and the candle isn't the only example. It's that the metaphors are strained in a kind of John Donne sort of way, but less clear, and you're hearing it rather than reading it. And I think that there are like 3 different versions of how he interprets candles there, and it is hard to follow. I think even for me as a reader, I think you'll have trouble with that here and there. If you do this, I definitely want to see it. I will definitely come. And you have converted me in some other ways I'm going to get to liking this play better than I thought I would. I'm taken by many things people have said. There's a theme here about it being tricky, about the expectations being unclear at first, about the genre being hard to identify, about the amount of humor to allow in it. And I too responded one way at the beginning and differently towards the end. I think the play changes, and it also might be that I just had different unreasonable expectations. For me, I came in responding to the title, that it's in some sense thinking it's about Bussy, and he starts and ends the play with big speeches, and his rhetoric is quite powerful. And Lynn compared him early on, rightfully, I think, to Coriolanus as kind of an ambiguous, heroic figure. All right,
well, he's in Plutarch. Plutarch's.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of the duck version, but yeah. And so I expected it to be about him, and I was always disappointed that the great fire and cosmic force of his powerful rhetoric never belonged to actions that were any more interesting than going to court, having an adulterous affair, and being killed for it. There was a mismatch between the height of the rhetoric and the actual events that are going on, which maybe is common in, say, a revenge play, which is what it comes out to be, I guess. And there's also, well, let's see, I've got so many different things, I should not say them all. I go back to the line, as give a man full valor, virtue, and learning without an end more excellent than those. The play is acknowledging what I just said, that there's a greatness in him that is not matched by the opportunities that nature and life and this plot afford him. And I find that hard to deal with. But I think Rob's suggestion that it's really about the court, that the court and the cast can be a kind of organic thing that has its own complications and integrity of a vicious sort, might indeed change my perception of it on stage. And maybe if I go into it perceiving that early on from the hands of a good director, I wouldn't be disappointed in the same way. I should just stop there.
No, I mean, it's. I think we haven't. There are lots. There are so many things we could. I think we could actually go on for a lot longer. We do have to, unfortunately, stop, which is a bit of pain. But I think there's so much more to pick out of this. I mean, we haven't really touched on the extremity of the violence in this last act as well. We really haven't talked about. There's something quite torture porny about some of what was going on there. So there's a big discussion about the ethics of what you're doing there and how the play then ends and where that all lands. I think there's also the element of just the companies that are producing this. They are producing some really weird plays at this time that are playing with genre. John Marston is at his height around about now. Those plays are all really difficult to decide what tone they're doing from minute to minute, and I think there's an element of that's going on here as well. And actually, at some point, when we go back and say look at maybe a company plays in relatively short succession, that we might be seeing more patterns there and being able to take them together rather than individually. But that is our want, and sadly, we have run out of time. Seriously, and all I have time for is thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Many hands you have seen D'Ambois slain, but the world shall hear from him again.